Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Welcome to anyone who's joining us online as well. This is the first day of a 5-day course that's titled Harmony in Relationships. This is where we're going to help you to understand the teachings of the Buddha and develop harmony in your relationships. Because oftentimes in the unenlightened mind, as an individual has progressed through life, you have disharmony in your relationships. That's one of the challenges in the unenlightened state, is that the mind oftentimes has a certain amount of bitterness or hostility or harshness in your relationships. Even with people that especially with people that you're really close to, you'll tend to have very difficult relationships that you might actually think it's your parents or your brothers or sisters or your life partner that's causing all these problems in your life, where in reality it's things that are going on in your own mind. And you can actually get to the point where you have harmony in all your relationships. So I'm going to be teaching you guys many things throughout the course of the week. But what we're going to do this morning, just to get started, is do some meditation together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the course, helping you guys to understand what it is I'm going to be teaching you over the coming days. Then this morning, we're going to spend a lot of time on something called the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you would need to know inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down, no matter what you're going to do in terms of building up your life, building relationships, understanding the path to enlightenment. It would be this teaching that you would need to know. Then we're going to take a lunch break, and we take a mid-morning break as well, but we're going to take a lunch break. And then when we come back in the afternoon, I'm going to teach you something called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots. This is the 3 high-level problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind, and we're going to talk about what those are, and we're going to talk about the solutions to them and how to fix it as well. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I do this is I start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And if you guys would like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. I see you guys have the chanting sheets. For those of you guys that haven't joined before, it's important to understand that chanting originates back during the lifetime of the Buddha, with him using it as a learning tool, or as a learning device, where he spoke orally. That's how he taught, and students would recite his teachings orally in order to remember his teachings and commit them to memory. So it's important to understand that this isn't a rite, a ritual, or ceremony, worship, prayer, or anything like that. That during the lifetime of the Buddha, they just used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, they would come together and recite his teachings. So we don't need to do this in order to remember the teachings any longer, because we have books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this to be able to study with. But I still use these chants because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. You'll see from the translations that there's a lot of respect and appreciation and gratitude for the Buddha in these chants. And because of that, I don't even think that the Buddha created these chants himself, because a Buddha wouldn't go around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, because this would be ego and arrogance and putting yourself above people and looking down on them. And the Buddha wouldn't have done that, because by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have ego where you think of yourself as being above people. So I suspect these chants came from his students, either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha taught people how to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state, eliminating feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And you would probably have a lot of appreciation and gratitude for a teacher who chooses to help you to do that and doesn't want anything or expect anything from you. So that's where I suspect these chants actually came from, is his students. And it's important to remember that it's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. So in terms of your body position, there's actually 4 positions to meditate in: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment, where oftentimes students are learning in the seated position to get started, but there's these other positions that you would use because it's like building a tool belt. And I teach these in some of the various courses and retreats that I share. But when we just get started like this, I'll just share some guidance with you on the seated position, just to help you get started. That you could sit on the floor or in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is going to kind of soften your seat a bit. And if you bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you like to just do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation in the lower body. So you'd like your legs just be lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. So you can sit however you like. There's not just one way to actually sit. So these things that I'm sharing with you are just recommendations or suggestions. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. You could do this if it's comfortable for you, but it's not about everyone doing it the same way. This is not actually possible. So some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And the same thing's true if you'd like to use a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people put their feet on the floor flat, or some people crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. You'd like your upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation, and having your sternum up and your shoulders back will help you to be able to do that so you can actively train your mind. And it also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting. If you guys would like to join in, you're more than welcome. It'll help you in your meditation. Then I'm going to come in with the guidance to be able to kind of teach you and instruct you how to meditate as we're meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Otang Mahakawanang Apivateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Damang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Puto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโอตังมหาคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาคะวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารนังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. This course of harmony in relationships is going to teach you how to have harmony in all your relationships, because by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't have disharmony in any of your relationships. Over 2,500 years ago, this individual that we refer to as the Buddha figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. He discovered this better way of life through training his own mind. And then he shared those teachings for the rest of his life. From the age of 35 to 80, for 45 years, he helped people to understand how to get to that same mental state. There's certain tools and techniques that you can use in order to train your mind to get to the point where it's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. And you do this through uprooting pollutions that are in the mind. And as you do this, not only will you see that your mind's peaceful and joyful, but you'll notice that you have complete focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because by uprooting these pollutions, your mind's going to be performing optimally. You'll notice that you don't have any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. And when these feelings are arising in your day-to-day life, oftentimes it produces unskillful conduct. And this is one of the reasons why people have disharmony in their relationships, because those painful feelings that you experience, oftentimes the mind attributes that to something external. You might think the other person is causing you to be angry or frustrated, And now you become unskillful through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, being bitter and harsh and hostile to other people. And it damages your relationships. So by eliminating this out of your mind, through cultivating the mind and training the mind, this is where more and more harmony comes into your relationships. By the time you get to enlightenment, your personal and professional relationships are in complete harmony. You don't have disharmony in any of these relationships. They'll really be blossoming. They'll be at ease. Where in the unenlightened state, when we lack wisdom and our mind isn't trained, we'll have difficulties and struggles in our relationships. And typically what we do is we blame the other person. And we think that the way to solve these problems is to change the other person. And that's what an individual is typically doing when they don't understand this path to enlightenment. So everything you're going to hear me teach you over the next 5 days is all about training your mind. It's not about going out into the world and changing other people. You can't change other people. It's not possible. If someone's going to change, they need to decide for themselves that they are interested in change. In order for you to experience change in your life, you're going to need to decide to change. By choosing to change your own mind and choosing to function differently in your relationships, this is what's going to improve your relationships. If you continue to do the same things that you have been doing, you're going to keep experiencing the same results. So as I teach you this week, you're going to hear me say things and teach you things that may be completely opposite of everything you've ever learned in your entire life. And that's actually really good. If you're in a classroom where everything that you hear from the teacher is what you're currently doing, you're in the wrong classroom because you're not growing, you're not learning, you're not developing, you're not hearing things differently than what it is that you're already doing. So as I share things with you throughout the week, I'm sure you're going to hear things that are completely opposite of everything you've ever been taught your entire life that you would ever even fathom of doing perhaps. But that's actually really helpful. And when you hear those things, of course, your mind's going to be like, whoa, this doesn't make sense to me. What you would like to do in those situations is ask questions, right? Ask questions to get clarity and understand. What the mind typically does when it hears something new like this is it will tend to push it away, because it really doesn't want to take the time and effort and energy to learn this new thing and implement this new thing in your life, because that represents a certain amount of effort and work that needs to happen in order for that to occur. So what the unenlightened mind typically does is, because of its complacency, it will tend to push these types of things away. So what I'm encouraging you to do as you hear me share different things with you throughout the week is ask questions, get clarity, ask for more information. And you're going to have plenty of time to do that all the way throughout the course. Then I'm going to pause at different times and open up for questions that you guys might have as I'm teaching. Here at the temple, if you guys have questions, we have microphones in the white bowl that you can get a microphone and ask any questions that you like, because we have people joining us online, and by having a microphone, they'll be able to actually hear you. Where if you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you. All you need to do is get a microphone, bring it to your seat, and then press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and then just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anyone who's joining us online, you can ask questions through putting that in the comment section in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and unmute your microphone and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So what the Buddha teaches you, that in terms of approaching his teachings and trying to understand what it is that he taught, is that you do so with what he calls eager ears, that you actively listen to what it is that he has to share with you. If you're just sitting back, sleeping, these kinds of things, you're not going to be able to learn and actively understand what it is that the Buddha has to share with you, because you need to actively be able to understand what it is that the Buddha is teaching you, because that's what's going to help you to cultivate wisdom and then make better decisions in your day-to-day life. Because the difficulties and struggles that we experience in our day-to-day life, it's coming from decisions that you are making yourself. Again, I understand that oftentimes we think that it's other people that's causing us these difficulties and struggles. But one of the things I'm going to teach you this morning, in a way that you can independently verify, is how it's your own mind that's causing all these challenges for you. Now, that doesn't mean the other person isn't doing something that's unwise, because they could surely be doing something that's unwise. But they're not the ones who are causing your mind to be angry or sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or anything like that. So I'm going to help you to be able to see this in a way that you can independently verify. None of the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. It's not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. That's not the way his teachings work. And it's also not a bunch of rules or commandments that everybody's trying to convince you to follow certain rules or commandments. It's also not rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship and things like this. It's actually real life techniques and tools and wisdom that's going to help guide your decision making so that you can experience improved results in your day-to-day life. So my role as a teacher is to basically help you to be able to see these teachings and then invite you to be able to ask questions and gain insight for them. So here, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not here to force you to do anything whatsoever. I'm here to help you understand this better way of life. I'm essentially like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to be able to learn and understand to be able to then cultivate the wisdom yourself in order to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. You're not a devotee or a follower or anything like that. You're an independent practitioner who's looking to gain wisdom and understanding about this world that you live in. And by cultivating that wisdom, you will naturally make wiser and wiser decisions. When we were growing up as children, we lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And because of that, we struggled and we had lots of difficulties. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys, we might have been bleeding at different places, and we cried and cried and cried because we didn't really understand this world that we lived in. We had all this gravity affecting us and we didn't understand it because we just lacked wisdom. And because of that, we fell down and hurt ourselves, and we had other complications as well. But slowly but surely over time, we gained wisdom of this natural law, and we started making wiser and wiser decisions. And now we understand that when we go outside, we need to tie our shoes a bit tight. We need to stop being so giddy and bouncing around like a kid all the time. And now we can do things like climb ladders, we can ride bicycles and motorbikes, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world, because you might say that we're fully awake, or we have awakened to the natural law of gravity. Essentially what that means is we've cultivated wisdom, and now we make better decisions, because these natural laws affect you whether you're aware of them or not. The natural law of gravity affected us whether we were aware of it or not, but as long as we lacked wisdom of that natural law, we made unwise decisions and it produced unwholesome results for us. But when we cultivated wisdom about that natural law, then we were able to make wise decisions and we experienced wholesome results. And now what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do is to understand that there's other natural laws that your mind doesn't currently understand. The struggles and difficulties that you experience in your day-to-day life, this is because the mind just doesn't understand the world that it lives in. Same thing with the natural law of gravity. We didn't understand the world that we lived in. But slowly but surely, just like we gained wisdom of that natural law, there's other natural laws that you can gain wisdom about. And as you gain wisdom of these natural laws, that's what's going to help you to now make wiser decisions that produce improved results in your day-to-day life. Again, if we continue to make the same decisions that we've always made, then you're going to keep getting the same results. This is where you might see in certain relationships that you keep experiencing the same things over and over and over and over again, because the mind hasn't cultivated any wisdom to be able to make different decisions and then experience different results. So the path to enlightenment is all about cultivation of wisdom and understanding that you are your own independent practitioner, with a teacher essentially serving as a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to understand. And it's you that's doing the work to be able to understand those things. So you're surely going to hear things that are opposite of what it is that you currently think about the world right now. And that's actually really helpful, because then it'll help you to cultivate wisdom, to be able to make different decisions, and then you can experience different results. So as we go, as you hear anything that is opposite of what you currently think about the world, that's where it's an opportunity for you to gain insight and understanding by asking questions. And I'm going to be pausing at different times throughout the things that I share with you to be able to help you to understand these natural laws and then give you a chance to ask questions. Because that's what the Buddha taught, is he taught these natural natural laws. And that's why his teachings are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws don't change. It's timeless. His teachings applied 2,500 years ago, and they apply today too. His teachings aren't stuck in a cultural past that degrades and denigrates any particular type of person. You'll never see any of that kind of stuff in the teachings of the Buddha. He taught people how to be respectful and kind and polite and friendly and joyful and cheerful and have bright and a glad and cheerful, uplifted mind. And this is what you can do as you eliminate the pollution out of your mind, where your mind can be bright and radiant and cheerful at all times, where you can have gladness in your mind at all times. Right now, you probably get happy when certain things occur, but then you get angry or sad or frustrated when other things occur. And you can get rid of that. You can eliminate this from the mind. And it just comes through training of the mind. And you're going to need to be able to actively learn and understand in order to be able to do that. So welcome to everybody here. Welcome to everyone online. It's going to be a great week to be able to share these teachings with you and help you to understand how to develop more and more harmonious relationships, because that's where life gets so fulfilling, right? We have these lives that we live, and as we interact with each other and spend time with other people, it's very fulfilling to have wonderful relationships where you can have satisfying, fulfilling, and sustaining relationships all through your life, where you don't have to keep experiencing broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship, and the difficulties and struggles that comes with that, and the hostility and the bitterness that comes with that as well. So I'm going to introduce you to the course first, and then we're going to go into the very first teaching of the Buddha, helping you to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. So our course, I'm going to be starting each morning at 9 a.m., and we're going to generally finish around 3 p.m. each day. Sometimes maybe a little bit earlier, sometimes later, just depends what's going on in the course. Okay, this is my contact information. If you're interested in contacting me for any reason, whether it's during the course or after the course, you're more than welcome to use this contact information. If you're coming to class, great, I'll teach you. If you're not coming to class, no worries. You don't have to check in with me. I'm not taking attendance or anything like that. There's none of that kind of stuff here, right? So if you're not coming to class, no worries. I'm actually live streaming everything that we do. So it's on YouTube, it's on our Facebook group, it's on our podcast. You'll find it in all these different places. You can log in through Zoom as well. Maybe you're sick at home or you can't get here for any reason. You can use this type of thing to be able to help you continue to learn. So if you're coming to class, great, I'll teach you. But if you're not here, don't worry, you don't have to check in with me. This contact information is more so for after the course, because nobody's going to create harmonious relationships in 5 days. You're not going to walk out of here with 100% of your relationships being harmonious. You're going to have more wisdom than you have right now, but you're going to need more help beyond this course. And that's where this contact information comes in. And you'll find all of this on our website. So if you go to our website at any point, you can find all this information, because you can reach out to me, whether it's during the course or after the course, at any point, to be able to get help as you need help in your journey in life. In terms of what we're going to be doing in terms of the structure of the course is each morning we're going to start with chanting and meditation at 9 a.m. where, like we just did, some chanting and meditation. And then by 9:30, we're going to start transitioning into some teachings, or the way that I think about it is discussions. Some people call these Dhamma talks, because the word Dhamma means teachings, and then it's a talk about the teachings. So I think of it as a discussion, that I'm sharing teachings with you, helping you to understand the teachings of the Buddha, and you're asking questions to be able to understand those more fully. So it's not a lecture, it's not a sermon, it's none of that kind of stuff. It's just me helping you to be able to understand the teachings. Then we're going to take a mid-morning break. Normally around 10:30 to 11, we take a mid-morning break. At some point, give you a chance to use the restroom, stretch your legs, get a snack, talk with each other, go out for a walk, whatever it is that you would like to do. Then when we come back, we're going to have more teaching and leading up to lunch. And then we generally take a lunch around 12. So again, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. It just depends on what's going on in the course. And we generally take about an hour and a half lunch to give you guys a nice long time to be able to spend time with each other, to refresh yourself with some food, go out and get a walk in or some fresh air, whatever it is that you'd like to do. Then when we come back from lunch, I'll let you know each day when we go to lunch which time we're going to restart. Then we're going to have some talks in the afternoon where I'm going to be helping helping you with some teachings in the afternoon. Oftentimes we're learning meditation, but other times we're learning other things. Like today, we're going to do meditation together each afternoon, but then there's going to be some talk. So in this course, you're going to be meditating in the morning and in the afternoon. So you're going to get 2 meditations in. And then if you'd like to meditate in the evening, you can meditate in the evening too, to even get 3 meditations in per day if you like, to build up the momentum in your meditation practice. And then we're going to generally finish around 3 p.m. Again, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, just depends what's going on in the course. So this is generally how the course is structured. In terms of what we're going to be learning is this first book of the book series. I have a 13-book book series. This first book is the book that really helps you to develop a foundation, and you can actually get this for free. You can download it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it yourself. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can also get it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon in your country. I'm going to be helping you to understand chapters 4, 5, 8, 11, 13, 14, and 15, but that's only about probably half of the course. The other half of the course that I'm going to be teaching you, I've actually never written about it. Writing about how to develop harmonious relationships is actually quite challenging because it's not like a cookie cutter thing. It's not like a recipe. It's not like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So it's challenging to actually write about these kinds of things, about how to develop harmonious relationships. So it's easier to teach it in a live class like this. But these chapters form the foundation of what it is that I'm going to be teaching you. But then there's a whole host of other things that I'm going to be teaching you that aren't in any of the books. But I do recommend that you get a version of this book, however you choose to do that, because there's some things that are in the classes that aren't in the book, and there's some things in the book that aren't in the classes. So the combination of the two will really help you. So if you're reading during the week, great, or if you read after the course, it's up to you. But if you use this in combination with what you're learning here in the course, it's going to help you to be more fully informed and actually be able to regularly study, because you're not going to be able to learn what it is that I'm teaching you and then immediately understand it, immediately implement it, and immediately get the benefits of it. What researchers say is when you go through a learning event like this, you learn about 10% of what's being offered to you the first time you go through it. Then when you go through it a second time, they say you learn kind of like 30 to 40, maybe 50% of what's actually being shared. And then if you learn it a third time, then you're up to like kind of like 80 or 90% of what's actually being offered. So oftentimes students are learning in these courses multiple times. So nobody's going to walk out of here understanding 100% of everything that's being taught. But with having a book like this, you can revisit it, and also the videos and the podcasts and things like that. You can revisit what it is that I'm sharing with you. So this is a really helpful thing to be able to help you to be able to learn, is having this book. And some students tell me they read this 8 or 12 different times over the course of multiple years, and they say they learn something every single time they read this book. So this is a good place to start. Okay, in terms of the topics that I'm going to be sharing with you, is this morning I'm going to be teaching you the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. If you're interested in understanding anything that the Buddha has to teach you, you would need to know this teaching. If you're remotely interested in even understanding a glimmer of what the Buddha taught, you would need to know this teaching. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and everything else plugs into it. And in order to have harmonious relationships, you would need to know the Eightfold Path. You would need to learn it inside and out, backwards and forwards, up, down, left, right, and really commit it to your memory. If this is the first time you're learning it with me, you're going to learn it to a certain degree today, but then you're going to need to revisit it multiple times and really commit it to your memory. So I'm going to help you to be able to understand that and how it fits into developing harmonious relationships. This afternoon, I'm going to teach you what's called transforming the 3 poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is a high-level understanding of what's going on in the mind so that you'll understand the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And then we're going to talk about how to eliminate these as well. I'm going to give you the solutions of how to fix it, because this is the reason why you have disharmony in your relationships, because of these 3 poisons, or some people call them the 3 unwholesome roots or 3 fires. This is what's plaguing you from having very sustaining, fulfilling, and harmonious relationships. Then I'm going to teach you how to identify your cravings. This is how to go in and actually almost surgically remove your craving, desire, attachment, because this is what's causing the mind to experience things like anger, sadness, and frustration. If you've learned anything about the teachings of the Buddha, you might hear people talk about eliminating craving, desire, attachment. Well, I'm going to teach you what that is this morning so you'll understand what that is. But then tomorrow, I'm going to teach you how to go in and almost surgically remove these, because the Eightfold Path is kind of like a generalized training that you need to have in place as a foundation. But then there's other teachings that plug into this, and going into actually surgically removing your cravings, desires, attachments is something that you can do. And that's what's going to help produce more and more peace and joy in your mind, and also the concentration and focus and all these other qualities. Then I'm going to teach you the 4 healthy mental states of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. This is where the Buddha gets the reputation of almost being like a doctor, because there are certain symptoms that he sees in your mind, and then he applies a certain prescription. And now the Buddha gets this reputation of being like a doctor. But you are actually your own best doctor, because you're with this being all the time. Nobody knows this being who you are better than you. So as you go through life and you see these symptoms, you can actually apply the antidote or the prescription or the remedy if you know what they are. So I'm going to teach you what the symptoms are that you'll have when you don't have these healthy mental states in your mind. And then when you have those symptoms and you notice those symptoms, if you know the antidote or the remedy, you'll be able to apply it yourself, because you are your own best doctor. So I'm going to teach you those. Then the real focal point of this course is helping you to understand true love. Love without attachment. This is the whole reason why people have difficulties in their day-to-day life, is that in the unenlightened state, there's a lack of wisdom of what love truly is. If you're falling in love with people and out of love with people, you're not yet practicing true love. If you have those kinds of situations going on where you're getting maybe angry and disgruntled and irritated and annoyed and hostile in relationships, you're not yet practicing true love. And this is just because the mind doesn't understand what true love is. There's something that's actually masquerading as love, and you'll think that this is love, but it's actually not. If you think that love hurts, and if you think love is painful, you're not yet understanding what is true love, and you're not yet practicing true love. So I'm going to help you to understand this thing that's masquerading as love, and you maybe think that this is actually love because you're falling in love and out of love and you're experiencing painful feelings. That's not actually the love that's causing that. I'm going to explain to you what true love is and help you to understand how to practice this in your day-to-day life. Because if you're not practicing true love, you're not going to be able to receive true love, because whatever you put out, that's what's going to come back to you. So as long as you don't understand what true love is, you won't be practicing it, and you'll have a difficult time experiencing it from people coming back to you. And even if people are practicing true love with you, if you don't know what true love is, you won't actually be able to identify it, that is actually what true love is. So that's the real focal point on Wednesday morning. I'm going to spend a lot of time helping you to understand what is true love. Then we're going to be talking about practicing in a world of the unknowing, relationships with non-practitioners, because it's really great when you get together with people like this who are all into wholesome things and interested in being loving and kind and polite and respectful. You guys are going to have lots of great conversations and interesting lunches and all kinds of things. It's like, wow, these people are really nice, really friendly. But when you go out into the world and you start interacting with people who aren't practicing these teachings, that's where it can be somewhat challenging for you. So I'm going to teach you how to have relationships with people who aren't practicing these teachings. They're not even remotely, maybe even interested in practicing these teachings. And I'll show you how to be able to continue your practice and develop your practice even when you're around people who aren't practicing these teachings. Then I'm going to teach you how to practice non-attachment, how to eliminate attachment to the people who are closest to you. What attachment is doing is it's causing you to be discontent. It's causing your anger and frustration, your sadness, your disappointment, your guilt, your shame, your fear, and all these other discontent feelings. And as long as you have attachment in your relationships, you'll struggle and have difficulties. And it's typically people that you're closest to that you have the deepest attachment, like your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, people like this, that you'll have the deepest attachments in those relationships, and you'll have the most difficulty in those relationships. These relationships over here with your friends and your acquaintances, those might be going pretty well. but these relationships over here are struggling. And that's why people typically think the problem is them, because these relationships are fine, but these relationships are struggling. But this is because of your attachment. You're going to understand more about what that is today. But then by the time we get to this topic, I'm going to teach you how to eliminate attachment to the people who are closest to you, because that's one of the hardest attachments to eliminate. Your attachment to your parents or your siblings or your life partner, your children. This is really challenging for your mind to eliminate. It oftentimes takes many years to be able to do that, but there are certain tools and techniques that you can actually go in and you will be able to eliminate your attachment to these people. And then you'll see that your relationships will become more harmonious because you're not putting expectations on them and trying to force them to do things a certain way, or yearning for them to do things a certain way. Then I'm going to teach you how to share the path to enlightenment, how to guide children along the path. If you have children, this is going to help you with that. If you don't have children, this is still going to help you, because there's going to be certain friends or family members or acquaintances or coworkers that might be interested in the path to enlightenment. And this particular topic, while it's geared towards guiding children on the path, it'll help you actually guide anybody. If somebody's interested in getting guidance from you about the things that you're learning and how to implement those in their life, this is going to help you with that. Then I'm going to teach you how to choose wholesome friends and a life partner, because who you choose to associate with in your day-to-day life is going to create certain results for you. And if you choose unwisely who to spend time with, this is going to impact you in an unwholesome way. But in order to choose wholesome friends and a life partner to be in your life, you need to be able to do this without the ego, where you're not looking down on people and thinking of people in a negative way. Because if you're judging people and looking down on them, this is actually harming your own mind. Because if you have ego, your mind will tend to do that. And every unenlightened mind pretty much has the ego to a certain degree. So you might be judging other people, measuring and comparing them, thinking of them in negative ways. And you would like to be able to learn how to select wholesome friends and a life partner without being judgmental towards others. So I'm going to teach you how to do this in a way that isn't judgmental towards others. Then I'm going to teach you how to practice the path to enlightenment in the workplace, because in order to get to enlightenment, it's not only in your personal life that you would practice these teachings, it's in your professional life too. Because remember, the Buddha is teaching you how to train your mind. He's teaching you how to live this better way of life. If you only practice these teachings in your personal life, you wouldn't get to enlightenment, because you'd still be struggling in your business life and in your career. So the Buddha's teachings are all encompassing. He's going to teach you how to have harmonious relationships both in your personal life and in your professional life as well. So I'm going to help you to understand that. Then we're going to get to this topic of the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. Some people say I should write a book about this. It sounds like a title of a book. You know how sometimes like someone might come to you and ask you to borrow money, or they might ask you to come to their party. They invite you to a party. And if you say, no, I'm not going to let you borrow that money, they might actually experience painful feelings. You're not causing those painful feelings. It's their own mind that's doing that. But oftentimes it can damage relationships. When someone invites you to a party, if you say, no, I can't come to your party, right? This can actually cause difficulties in your relationships. So I'm going to teach you the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. And this is going to actually help you to have more harmonious relationships, where you can maybe choose not to go to that party and not let that person borrow money, but do it in a polite and kind and friendly, respectful way. So I'm going to teach you guys that. In terms of our meditation, we're going to be doing breathing mindfulness meditation, which is what we did this morning. But eventually what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to teach you what's called loving kindness meditation. This is a meditation that essentially rewires your mind to be loving and kind, eliminating anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, there's probably people that you like, and there's people that you dislike. And this is actually coming from your own mind. That dislike isn't coming from the other person. You're going to learn about that as part of this course, how it's your own mind that's causing that dislike. This meditation is going to help you essentially rewire your mind, where you can be loving and kind with all beings, but also you can be loving and kind to this being too. Because oftentimes what the unenlightened mind has is it has this negative self-talk, this inner dialogue where you're degrading and diminishing yourself. This meditation is going to help you erase all of that, where you don't have to have that inner dialogue where you're negative and degrading yourself, because it's no fun to walk around with that voice inside your head that's constantly telling you how bad of a person you are. You can actually erase that. You don't have to continue to have that as you're going through life. And this meditation is going to help you to be able to do that. There's these 4 positions of seated, lying, standing, and walking meditation that you can do as part of meditating. And I teach these in the foundational course, but you can also do those here as part of these meditations as well. And then, of course, we're going to be doing Buddhist chanting. This is going to help you to be able to ease the mind into meditation. Where there's other courses that I teach you how to do the Buddhist chanting, this particular course, we're just going to actually be doing it. Then by the time we get to the end of the course, I'm going to teach you how to receive continued support on the path to enlightenment and how to integrate these teachings into your day-to-day life. Because if we spend 5 days together and you learn a bunch of things here, okay, great, we had a fun time together, or whatever amount of time, whether it's 1 day, 2 days, or what have you, okay, we've had a great time together. But if you haven't integrated, or you don't know how to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life, you're not going to get the long-term benefit of having learned those particular teachings, right? So if you're going to spend 1 day, 5 day, even 3 hours learning from a teacher, you would like to figure out how to take those things that you learn, integrate it into your life, and that's where the real benefit comes from. Otherwise, it's just information, right? So by the time we get to the end of the course, I'm going to teach you how to take what you've learned here and integrate it into your day-to-day life. Okay, so any questions on what it is you guys are going to learn as part of this course? No questions? Okay, people hardly ever have questions about this. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to teach you guys the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that's going to help you to be able to understand how to train your mind and experience more and more harmony within your relationships, and how to get to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state. As you guys heard me share, this enlightened mental state is a mental state. It's something that you can experience in this life, right? This is very rare to learn teachings like this where you can actually see the benefits now in this life. Oftentimes we're taught to believe a bunch of things and hope something good happens when we die. And that's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. So what you're going to be learning here is essentially like a self-help program, like an inner work, inner development of how to develop your mind and progress in life in order to experience improvement. What you're going to learn is about these 8 individual factors: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These are 8 individual things that you can dial into your life closer and closer, and you'll experience more and more peace in your mind and more benefits in your day-to-day life and harmonious relationships. One of the ways you might think about this Eightfold Path is that if you had a speaker system and there were 8 dials on the speaker system, and you could tweak these 8 dials and you get a better and better quality sound out of your speakers, the same thing is true about your mind. That if you dial these 8 dials in and you tweak them, you're going to get a better performing mind, and you're going to have a better and better performing life. You're going to experience more and more benefits in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to walk you through each one of these using the words of the Buddha. That everything I share with you is based in the original words of the Buddha. And for some people, when they hear that, they're like, yeah, of course, like what else would you do? How else would you teach the teachings of the Buddha if it wasn't the original words of the Buddha? Well, you would be surprised that there's lots of places in the world that don't teach based on the original words of the Buddha. That I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that teaches based on the original words of the Buddha. That's less than 1%. Because the original words of the Buddha are in 45 volumes of books that are this thick. And for a long time, it was very inaccessible for people because it's very expensive to print these out. The average Thai person would have to spend about 3 months of their salary in order to be able to get a copy of the teachings of the Buddha. You probably don't own any book collection that's valued at 3 months of your salary, right? So the average Thai person, the average temple, doesn't even have access to the teachings of the Buddha. So they typically aren't sharing the original words of the Buddha. But what you would like to do in your journey to enlightenment is to make sure that you're always learning with the original words of the Buddha. And then you don't believe those words. You learn them, you examine them, and you investigate what is being shared. Then you reflect on those those teachings, to independently verify if they're true or they're false. And then you practice those teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. And that's where the real results come from. So I'm going to help you to be able to see what the Buddha taught on each one of these factors. And I'm going to walk you through it like a tour guide, helping you to be able to learn it, to reflect on it, and helping you to understand how to practice it, because that's where the real results come from. This Eightfold Path is organized in 3 sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. And we're going to start here with right view, because this is the real foundation that's going to help you to be able to understand the entire path to enlightenment. You wouldn't understand anything the Buddha has to teach you if you didn't understand right view. So these are the words of the Buddha on right view. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So what he's doing here is he's actually pointing to another teaching. He's saying that's right view. What he's pointing to is something called the Four Noble Truths. This is his very first teaching. After he got to enlightenment and he started teaching his very first 5 students, he taught them the Four Noble Truths. And every new student that he would meet, he would teach them the Four Noble Truths first. And the way that you'll know that this is pointing to the Four Noble Truths is underneath of this line, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths. So you can build confidence that what the Buddha is doing here is he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths, because there's actually more beyond this. This is just the top section of the Four Noble Truths. So rather than repeat the Four Noble Truths over, he's just, as part of the Eightfold Path, saying, hey, that's right view over there. Because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching and everything else plugs into it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths, because that's what he's pointing to as right view and helping you to understand what this is. In order to understand right view and the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. Now, we call these truths, the 3 universal truths, the Four Noble Truths, because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true too. But in order for you to benefit, you need to know they're true. And that's why you don't believe anything. Don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything I put in these books. Don't believe anything. You need to be able to learn, examine, and investigate, reflect to independently verify, and then practice. That's what's going to give you the wisdom that you need to be able to awaken to understand the world around you. So ultimately, by the time we get to the Four Noble Truths, there's going to be 4 simple statements where the Buddha is going to explain to you the problem in your mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And in 4 simple statements, you'll be able to independently verify why you experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. Essentially, you can have a breakthrough to finally understanding what's causing these feelings so that then you can actually eliminate them. Because what we do in the unenlightened state with the lack of wisdom is we tend to believe that it's other people that are causing these feelings. But what you're going to be able to do today, if you take your time to learn, reflect, and practice, is you'll be able to have a breakthrough to being able to see what's truly causing these feelings so that then you can eliminate them. Because if you go around the world continuing to think that it's other people that are causing these feelings, you'll never actually be able to fix it. So I'm going to help you to understand the 3 universal truths first, because these are like building blocks to be able to help you understand the 4 noble truths. But you need to do the work to be able to understand this. Because what the Buddha's doing is he's explaining to you the way the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows rules and commandments, the world will become a better place. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, you'll be able to navigate it more peacefully. So, for example, this first universal truth, the universal truth of impermanence, what he explains to you is that everything in the world around you is constantly changing, that they arise, change, and fade away. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, anything you taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it's constantly changing, that it's impermanent. These are called conditioned objects. Conditioned objects will arise, they will change, and they will fade away. This is called impermanence. They're essentially temporary. Okay? There's also something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. Enlightenment is that way. Once you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state, that it doesn't arise, change, or fade away. Your mind is just permanently enlightened. And then the natural laws themselves that the Buddha taught, those are permanent as well. Now, people's memories and the books and what people think about the teachings, that all changes, but the natural laws themselves that the Buddha described, those don't actually change. That's why his teachings are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because all he did was explain the natural laws. And since those don't change, then if you learn the teachings the way that he taught them, then you'll be able to see the truth, because those natural laws don't change. So this universal truth of impermanence is helping you to understand that the things around you in the world are constantly changing. And this is so important for you when we get to the Four Noble Truths to understand this. So this is a little bit of the learning. The intellectual part is understanding that things are constantly changing in the world around you. But you don't believe that because you're an independent practitioner looking to cultivate wisdom. So now, after you hear me teach something like this, you now move that into reflection, and you start trying to reflect and trying to determine if what I'm sharing with you is true or if it's false. Because if what I'm sharing with you is true, you should be able to independently verify it for yourself, because there's no belief here. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. But if you've learned something intellectually and you reflect on it, look around the world to try to determine for yourself what's true or false, if it's truly a universal truth and it's truth, you should be able to independently verify it. And here's how you do it. Take something that you're familiar with, right? Maybe this human body. You're very familiar with this human body. Ask yourself, is this human body permanent, meaning that it never changes, is exactly the same all the time? Or is this human body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We get pimples, we get moles, we get gray hair. Our teeth grow in, then they fall out, and then new teeth grow in. This is just change with the physical body, right? We're constantly changing. This body's constantly changing, right? So that's impermanence. You can see that the body's constantly changing. What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent, meaning you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life? Or are your relationships impermanent, meaning people are coming and going in and out of your life? What would you say? Are they permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People are coming and going in and out of your life all the time. What about your bank account? So your bank account's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, 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 right? Your bank account is impermanent. What about the weather? Would you say the weather is permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Constantly changing. It's sunny, it's sleeting, it's snowing, it's raining, typhoons, things like this. It's constantly changing. There's hail, sleet, things like this, right? It's constantly changing. Let's see. What are some other things? When you are here at the temple, when we first got here this morning, there was a certain number of people here, but now more people have come, right? And then maybe some people will leave, and then maybe more people will come, right? People are going to be coming and going all throughout the course. When you look around the temple, you can see the wood planks on the floor. You can see some of them are longer, some of them are shorter, some of them are one color, some of them are a different color, some of them have a certain texture, some of them have a different texture, right? This is all change. That's what the Buddha is explaining to you, that the world is constantly changing. So you're going to need to be able to see this in the world around you. You're going to need to deeply soak this into your mind. So when you're walking down the street and you see on the sidewalk a crack on the sidewalk, that is impermanence, right? You look at a fence and you see the paint is fading, that is impermanence. Here in Thailand, some streets have sidewalks and some streets don't. Here in Thailand, some sidewalks are flat, some sidewalks you have to walk up and down them, right? In order to walk on the sidewalk in Thailand, right? So everything's constantly changing. It's not going to be the same. right? So this is something that you're going to need to deeply soak into the mind so that you can see the wisdom in it. And if you don't see it right now, go out into the world and see for yourself. There's green leaves in the tree, and then there's brown leaves on the ground. That is impermanence, right? That's change, right? So you need to be able to see this for yourself. Now, the second universal truth is called discontentedness. This particular universal truth, for some people, they translate it as suffering. If you've learned some of the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard them use the word suffering here. I'm going to explain to you what the Buddha taught here, and then I'm going to circle back and help you to understand why I don't use the word suffering. This particular universal truth is explaining to you the unenlightened mind and what you experience in the unenlightened state. It explains the problem that you experience. And the word that is in the original source teachings in the Pali Canon, which is the Pali language, is the word dukkha. This word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, essentially explaining to you how your mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's uncalm. And the Buddha describes that there's three feelings that an unenlightened being will experience: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. These are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you're going to experience a feeling. So the pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. The painful feelings are things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Very painful to experience those feelings, and they're based on some condition. And then there's feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example of this, right? It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say like you were on public transportation and somebody came and sat next to you that you didn't know, and your body's touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, you're kind of uncomfortable. The mind's dissatisfied in that situation. That's the neither painful nor pleasant feeling. So these are what's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you're going to experience a feeling. So the unenlightened being, they'll wake up in the morning, they'll see it's sunny outside, and they'll get so excited. Oh my gosh, it's sunny outside. I'm going to go on that hiking trail. I've been wanting to go on that hiking trail for so long. Oh, this is going to be so great. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to have a great time. And you get really excited based on the condition that it's sunny. That's the condition that's causing the mind to now experience the pleasant feeling. But now that unenlightened being will go take a shower, and they will come back out, and now it's raining, and they will be sad or frustrated or angry because they base their happiness on the sun, and the sun is not permanent. So therefore the happiness is not permanent. It's a feeling that arises, it changes, and it fades away. This is called conditional happiness. This is the reason why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the unenlightened mind is forming its inner feelings based on some condition, like the sun. Or maybe it's your bank account. When the bank account balance is here, you're happy. But when it goes here, you're angry and frustrated. The only thing that's happened here is change. But the mind doesn't understand this, which we'll talk about here in a moment. An enlightened being, their mind doesn't function this way. They're already happy before they ever woke up. When they wake up, it's like, sweet, it's sunny outside. I'm going to go hiking today. I've been interested in going on that hiking trail. I'm going to call my friends and see if they like to go hiking, right? And now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. It's like, oh, well, guess I'm not going hiking today. Well, maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over. We can cook some food, have a good time. You can maintain your happiness because your happiness wasn't based on the sun. Therefore, when the sun is no longer there and it's raining, you can maintain your happiness, right? So this is something that you can do when you train the mind. Essentially, the enlightened mind is beyond pleasure and pain. It's beyond those conditional experiences. Instead of having conditional happiness, that you can only be happy when certain conditions are met, you can experience unconditioned happiness, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order to be happy. So essentially what the unenlightened mind has is like, if this condition is met, 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 then I will be happy. right? If my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, then I'll be happy, right? So your happiness actually dwindles, it shrinks, because the idea of all those conditions meeting and being true becomes less and less likely, right? So this is why some people, when they're old, they get old and grumpy. Not everybody, right? But some people are old and grumpy because they have all these conditions that have to be met in order to be happy. And the idea of all of those being met at the same time is very unlikely. So there's a better way of life here that the Buddha taught, is how to get beyond this, where you can have unconditional happiness. Your mind can just always be happy, but you need the wisdom of how to do that, and you need to be able to train your mind of how to do that. So these painful feelings, it's very obvious that you would like to get rid of these, right? And maybe even the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. It's very obvious that you need to get rid of those and eliminate those. But even these conditioned pleasant feelings, this is part of the problem too. Because remember, they're conditioned, they're temporary. They ultimately leave you feeling unsatisfied, because the mind can only be happy when this thing is occurring. What you would like to get to is where you're beyond this, where you're experiencing unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joy, where you can just always be happy and always joyful. So if you only get happy when certain things occur, that means your mind is going to experience the painful feelings later. So for example, if you get a brand new job and you're so happy and excited with that brand new job, wow, it's the perfect company, the perfect salary, the perfect title, the coworkers are amazing, the vision and mission of the company is outstanding, and you get so happy and excited about this new job. Well, 5 years later, when the company goes out of business, or they lay you off, or you get fired for some reason, you're going to be sad. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be angry. So if you allow your mind to get conditional pleasant feelings, when that condition is no longer met, your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So if you allow your mind to get conditional pleasant feelings, the painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner. So you need to be able to see the conditioned pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones, so that you can get beyond this, where your mind can experience the unconditioned happiness, the unconditioned joy, where the mind can just always be joyful and bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted. But as long as you allow your mind to get conditional happiness, you're going to end up getting the painful feelings as well. You're going to get the anger and the sadness. It's waiting for you right around the corner. So we're going to talk about this more when we get to the Four Noble Truths so you can understand it. So this is called discontentedness, or the mind is discontent, or it is discontented. The mind is shaken up. It's unstable. It's unsteady. The mind's going up and down and up and down, right? So this is what the Buddha talked about the unenlightened mind and what it's experiencing. But remember, you don't believe it, right? That's just the learning part, the intellectual understanding that I just shared with you. Now you need to move this into reflection to verify whether it's true or if it's false. Because right now, you know that your mind is unenlightened. And if what I just described is the unenlightened mind, then you should be able to verify this for yourself. You can ask yourself, do you experience these three feelings? Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And I explained to you how they're conditional, that they're based on some condition. You now experience that feeling. Ask yourself, is there any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? And if that's the case, we can talk about it when we get to the question period, and I will help you and we can talk about that. So this is how you independently verify that this is a universal truth, that all unenlightened beings are experiencing this. Then we've got let me explain the suffering part of this. So some people refer to this as suffering, right? If you read some of the older translations of the teachings of the Buddha, you might see this word suffering being used. The word suffering explains the painful feelings really well, right? The anger, the sadness, the guilt, the shame, the fear, the stress, anxiety, it's very painful. And you might say that you're suffering. But if your boss came in and gave you a raise and said, hey, you're getting $20,000 more per year, we're going to give you this big raise, you've been doing such a good job, and you got really excited about that, would you say you were suffering? Probably not, right? Or if your mom calls you up and said, hey, I heard you got a new house, I'd like to come see you and make that favorite food that you really enjoy, and you got really excited that mom is coming to see you, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. Or if you were on public transportation and somebody you didn't know came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body and you were experiencing these neither painful nor pleasant feelings, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. Your mind's discontent, right? It's shaken up. Have you ever been so excited you like tripped and fell? Or you broke something? Joe sounds like he has. Anybody else experienced that before? That's your mind being shaken up, right? That's how you understand that this is discontentedness, that your mind's unsteady, it's uncalm, it's unstable when your mind's in that heightened, excited state. So this is why we call it discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. The word suffering only explains these painful feelings. So you would be missing 66% of the teacher's teachings. You would only be understanding 33% of his teachings if you used the word suffering. But the word discontentedness explains the full spectrum of feelings and emotions that are experienced in the unenlightened state. Whereas if you didn't understand that the pleasant feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones, you wouldn't understand what to do in order to be able to train your mind. So by using the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, you can more fully understand what the Buddha is teaching you. So I would encourage you to use that word rather than the word suffering, even though you might see other people using this word. Then we've got the universal truth of non-self, which I'm going to explain to you and introduce to you what this is. But first, I'm going to explain to you what this is solving, because this is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And for those of you guys that were here yesterday, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday too as part of the class. So first, let me explain to you the problem, and then I'll explain to you what this is, which is the solution. The Buddha discovered these 10 individual problems in the mind. They're called the 10 fetters. What a fetter is that during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a prisoner that they were trying to keep in a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball. And now they would keep you confined to this particular area. Where today we put criminals in jail cells or prison cells. But back then they would just put a fetter around your ankle, the shackle and chain and ball, and they would keep you in this field. So when the Buddha discovers these 10 pollutions that are in the mind, he refers to them as fetters. And there's 10 fetters. There's 10 pollutions in the mind, or defilements or taints. Now, just like a prisoner, if you release that shackle off the ankle and they're free, the same thing is true, that when you eliminate these fetters out of the mind is free. Because as long as you have these fetters in the mind is trapped and it's stuck in this unenlightened state, continuing to experience anger and sadness and frustration and all the difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day life because of that. But when you eliminate these fetters out of the mind, that's where it's now free, because you don't have these pollutions anymore. It's not bound up, that the mind is now peaceful and joyful. So everything the Buddha taught in one way or another is helping you to eliminate these 10 fetters in the mind, these 10 pollutions. The very first fetter is called personal existence view. This is the first pollution. What this fetter or this pollution is helping you to understand how the unenlightened mind will cling to this body or cling to your mind, wanting this to be permanent, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. This personal existence view is where the mind has confusion or misunderstanding, thinking that this body or this mind is you and who you are as a person. So the mind will cling to a self-image or a self-identity, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. And you can only be happy when you're being perceived that way. And when you're not being perceived that way, you'll experience anger or sadness or frustration or embarrassment or some other discontent feeling. So here's some examples for you to help you understand what this pollution is. If you've ever been in a social situation where you spilled something on your clothing, like spaghetti sauce or ice cream, and you were embarrassed, this is your personal existence view. Wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only feel comfortable when the mind's being perceived that way. So when your clothes are clean, hey, you feel great. Go out in the world, people are perceiving you the way you want to be perceived, but when you spill something on your clothing, you're not getting what you want, which is to be perceived a certain way, and now the mind doesn't like that. So that's where the embarrassment comes up in the mind. Or if you've ever stood in front of your closet and you thought about, who am I going to see today, and how do I want to look? right? And you might have rifled through your clothing to try to find that favorite shirt or that favorite pants or skirt or something like that in order to put those clothes on and then go out into the world. And you only felt comfortable when you had those clothes on. You might even put clothes on, looked in the mirror. No, that's not how I want to look today. Put on some other clothes. No, that's not how I want to look today. You put on a third set. You're like, all right, now I can go outside because I feel comfortable. This is the mind's personal existence view, thinking this body is you and who you are as a person. If you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple, or you got gray hair, or you started losing your hair, or you started getting a little bit of fat here and there, maybe a lot of fat here and there, right? And you looked in the mirror and you were shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you only felt comfortable when you were being perceived that way. When I was a child, I used to get out the gel and the mousse, and I would run it through my hair and try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I go outside to go to school. And I did this for so long sometimes, I would actually miss the school bus, right? So you might have experienced these kinds of things as you were growing up and even now. This is your personal existence view, thinking that this body is who you are, and you only feel comfortable going out into the world when this body appears the way that you want it to appear. The mind's craving permanence, to be permanently viewed in a certain way, and clinging to the self-image. But then the mind can cling to a self-identity as well. This is like your nationality, your job or occupation, your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation. You can cling to any number of things, thinking that this is who you are as a person. So you might think that I am Russian or I am American. I don't know where all of you guys are from. I am a Brit or I am German or any of this I am around your nationality, your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your job or occupation, any number of things you can cling to and think that this is who you are as a person. And now the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. So if your mind clings to the idea of I am American, when you're at a restaurant and two tables over, they're talking in a positive way. And they say, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. It's like, wow, they're talking about me. And you feel really good about that. You get pleasant feelings. But then two tables over, they start talking in degrading and disparaging ways about the place where you come from. And now you're angry and you're frustrated. It's like, they're talking about me. This is because the mind is holding on to an identity of who you think you are. Where in reality, all that's happened is this body was born on a certain dirt, certain earth. I don't need to adopt the identity of I am American just because this body was born on that land, right? But that's what the mind does, is it adopts this identity. Or you might have the identity of I'm a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, right? You can cling to this identity. And as long as you're together with your partner, there's a certain level of comfort. But when you guys break up and you're single, the mind doesn't identify with I am single. And now you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. That's the mind thinking that that's the problem. The problem here is I'm not in a relationship. I need to get in a relationship or I can't be happy. But the real problem is the personal existence view. The mind's clinging to this identity, wanting that to be permanent, that I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, but that's not permanent. And if you cling to that as who you think you are, when all those things start changing, you'll feel like less of a person. You won't feel comfortable. Or say you've been in a job or occupation where maybe you identify as I am a police officer. And now when you retire, you really struggle because your mind is not a police officer anymore. This being is not doing that. Or maybe you get fired or you get injured and you can't do that work anymore. Now you're driving a taxi, right? And now your mind's identifying with I am a police officer. And the whole time you're disgruntled and agitated and annoyed because you're doing something that isn't being a police officer and you feel like less of a person, right? So these are the kinds of things that the mind can do when there's personal existence view in the mind. Some people have this so strong that they might go to their family in their home country and they say, I need to go somewhere and find myself. I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find my true self. And some people come to places like Thailand to find themselves, right? Because they don't know who they are. And they might come to a place like Thailand and looking for themselves. And when they're here, they might find a new hobby, new activities, new friends, maybe even a new job. And they eventually go back home and they're like, I found myself. I know who I am again. I feel so much better. I found myself. But now 5 years later, when all that stuff changes, they're right back in the same problem. They don't know who they are because their job changed, their hobbies changed, their friends changed, and they don't even know who they are anymore. So as soon as you grab on to something and try to think that this is who you are as a person, when all that stuff changes, you'll feel like less of a person. You'll feel unwhole. So what the Buddha teaches you as a solution to this personal existence view is that there is no self. That there's no self. This body is not you. It doesn't define who you are. This mind, this self-identity that your mind's holding on to, that doesn't define who you are as a person. But the mind in the unenlightened state will cling to this, thinking that this is who you are. Ever since birth, we've been accumulating this personal existence view. We were given labels. My label is David. Right? I don't know what your label is, but we've been giving these labels, and now we have this character and this personality that we put behind it. And then we find out that I am American, and now we have a flag and a national anthem and sports teams that each one of our countries have, and we feel like we need to cheer for that team because that's who we are. Right? So this has been accumulating. The mind has been conditioned over multiple years to think that this is who you are as a person. And what the Buddha teaches you is that as long as you have this in your mind, you can't ever get to peace and joy. Because all that needs to happen is somebody says, all Americans are blah, 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 blah. And now you're angry and frustrated, or all Russians are this, or all Brits are this, or whatever country you come from. That's all that needs to happen is somebody says that, and now you're upset and angry, right? So as long as your mind holds on to this identity or a self-image, you can't be permanently peaceful or joyful. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self, that you realize that none of these things are you. They don't define who you are as a person, that you can understand that there is a body and there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, but this doesn't define who you are as a person, right? So this is realizing non-self. Now, sometimes people understand this when I first share it with them, and sometimes they don't. So if this doesn't make sense to you, it's okay, right? That you'll still be able to learn this. Sometimes people have to study this one for a good year before they start to understand it. But let me help you to independently verify that there is no self so that you can see this for yourself, okay? So think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and now, in these 4 phases of your life. How did you view yourself? Was it exactly the same through all those 4 phases of life, or has it been constantly changing? What would you say? Has it been the same? It's been changing, right? From childhood to teenage years, early adulthood, and now, the way you perceive yourself and the way you think about your character and your personality, it's been constantly changing, okay? Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? No? Okay. What about the rest of you guys? If you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? No? Okay. So there you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. Because otherwise you would have answered that question differently, right? You would have said, well, there's less body, so there's less me, so there's less of a person. And yeah, I'm less of a person. But intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. But the personal existence view is the confusion, the misunderstanding that the mind has, that in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something about this body, if they say, wow, that shirt looks really nice on you. That color brings out the color of your eyes. You look so beautiful. You look so handsome. Oh, wow, they're talking about me, right? Because they're talking about this body. Or if someone says something degrading and disparaging, where did you get that haircut? Oh my gosh, right? And now you feel frustrated or angry or embarrassed or something like that. So intellectually, You understand that this body isn't you, or else you would have answered that question differently. But in the heat of the moment, your mind's pollution, the confusion, the misunderstanding, that personal existence view arises, and that's where you get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Here's a third way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? Okay. Sometimes people point here. That's commonplace. Yep. Sometimes people point here. Well, if you're pointing here and you're saying, this is me, I am here, you need to look at what you're pointing to. What you're pointing to is a shirt. Okay. If I took off my shirt and I held it up, or if you took off your shirt and hold it up, is that you? Is that who you are? That shirt that you've got? Is that you? That's not you, right? So throw that away. Where are you? And someone might point again, right? Now what you're pointing to is skin. So ask yourself, is that who you are? That skin that you've got, is that you? If we took off the skin and we held it up and pointed to it, is that you? That's not you. Okay, throw away the skin. Where are you? And someone might point again. Well, what are you pointing to? You got ribs, you've got muscle tissue, you've got organs, you got fluid. None of that stuff is you. Those bits and pieces and parts aren't you, but the mind's confusion and misunderstanding is it'll cling to this, thinking that this is who you are. And now if someone says something agreeable to you, you will get pleasant feelings. But if they say something disagreeable, you will get painful feelings. And that's what personal existence view is doing to the mind. So there's a solution, which is to realize non-self. And this takes time to train the mind to strip all this away. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on the three universal truths before we move on. So if you guys have questions here, if you guys could use the mics, and then anyone online, you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. So you guys have any questions on any of these? No? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Mr. David, is all discontentedness just related to what we see?
No, there's multiple senses. So when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, I'll wrap in what we call the 6 sense bases, because once you experience contact through these sense bases, if you have what we talk about in the Four Noble Truths, it's going to trigger the mind, and that's where you're going to get discontent. But let me talk about the Four Noble Truths first, and then I'll wrap in the 6 sense bases for you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. Okay, so one more building block, and then we can have this breakthrough with the Four Noble Truths. Okay, you're going to need to understand what is craving, desire, attachment, wants and expectations, holding, grasping, clinging, because we use these words in a unique way that is a little bit different than common language. What these words are describing is the mental aspect of the mind where it's longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. The mind almost has like an unquenchable thirst, thinking that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So it will chase it and chase it and chase it. It's like the mind's pulling towards this thing. It's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way that the mind is longing, yearning for it. It's pulling towards that thing. So if you've ever been in the mall and you've been walking through the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Oh my gosh, those look so good. I can't wait to get them on my feet. Oh, they're going to look so good. I can't wait to get them. This is the longing, yearning. It's not the shoes themselves. That's not the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way the mind longs and yearns for it, thinking that this is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. And then you might be longing, yearning for a video game or some jewelry or money or a new boyfriend or new girlfriend or something like this. The mind's longing, yearning, thinking that the next new shiny object is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So it tries to grab onto these things, thinking that this is what's going to take in order to get to the happiness or the peace or the joy. So do you guys know what I'm talking about here with your mind longing, yearning, pulling towards something? You guys know what this is? Okay. You've experienced this before, right? Okay. Now the Four Noble Truths. We've got all the building blocks. But remember, you're not believing this. I'm going to teach it to you intellectually. Then I'm going to show you how to reflect on it. Then I'm going to teach you how to practice it to get the benefits and the results. The first noble truth is explaining the problem. The second one is explaining the cause of that problem. The third one is explaining the elimination of it. And the fourth one is explaining the complete and total plan to completely transform the mind. So the first noble truth explains the problem, that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem. The mind is unstable. It's unsteady. It's shaken up. It's going up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before the mind gets angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. The mind's happy, excited, elated, thrilled, euphoria, yay! But then it's going to be sad and frustrated and irritated, embarrassed, disappointed, shy, all these discontent feelings. The mind's going up and down and up and down. Of course, with some calm and peace here and there, but it's only a matter of time before the unenlightened mind experiences discontentedness. The mind is unstable. It's unsteady. It's shaken up. And whenever the mind is shaken up like that, you can't make wise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So this is the problem. The cause of that problem is explained in the second noble truth. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples. The discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by the craving, the desire, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. And it's craving permanence, when in reality, you live in an impermanent world. So going back to that example of the shoes, if you're in the mall and your mind's longing, yearning for these shoes, and you get so excited that you saw those shoes in the window and you just can't wait to get into that store and try on those shoes. If you go into the store and they have your size, oh my gosh, yay, I got my shoes. I'm so excited. Yay. But if you go into the store and they don't have your size, because sometimes they're not going to have your size because of impermanence, now you're frustrated. Now you're angry or irritated or annoyed. This is being caused by the mind's craving for permanence. It wants things to be permanent. I want those shoes. That's what the mind's longing, yearning for, right? Or here's another example. Say you're with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and when you guys get together, you're so happy, you're so excited, particularly at the beginning of the relationship, right? Because you don't have very many cravings or expectations at that point. You're just interested to get to know this person. So at the beginning of the relationship, it goes really, really well. You guys are going to the movies, you're going to dinner, you're going to the park, you're having great conversations, you're probably having sexual contact at some point. Wow, so great, so much pleasure. But then over time, you start having these expectations, things that you want for this person, and they start having expectations of you. And you can't fulfill their expectations permanently because the world is impermanent. And they can't fulfill your expectations permanently because the world is impermanent. And now you get angry and frustrated, agitated because you're not getting what you want, what you expect. Now you guys break up, right? And now you might be really sad. You might be really angry. You might be lonely or bored, or you might be missing this person. It's not your love that's causing this. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. That as long as you guys were together, there was a certain amount of comfort in that. But then when you guys broke up, the mind started experiencing this impermanence. And the mind didn't understand impermanence. It didn't understand that this relationship was always impermanent. Ever since the beginning of the relationship, it was never going to be permanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. This relationship is impermanent, but the mind craves permanence, and it holds on and holds on and holds on, wanting this relationship to be permanent when in reality it is impermanent. And when the mind's getting what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. But when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. You can see this if you've had someone close to you die. maybe grandma or grandpa, or mom or dad, or brothers or sisters, or something like this, that as long as they were alive, you were getting what you wanted and you were happy to a certain degree, right? But then when they died, your mind experienced impermanence. Your mind didn't understand impermanence. So when they died, your mind didn't get what it wanted. And now you were sorrowful, or you were grieving, or you were sad, or maybe angry. Right? This sadness, this grief is coming in because the mind's craving permanence, wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. Because they were born, they had to die. That's the only reason why we die, is because we're born. Right? Because we're all impermanent. Every single one of us are going to die. It's only a matter of time, right? You can see this if you've ever been to a wedding. Maybe you've been crying at the wedding, or maybe the people around you were crying, maybe like mom and dad or brothers and sisters, because here's this person going off into the world with someone else, and the mind's like, that's my brother, that's my sister. How dare you take her away from me? Right? This is the mind holding on and craving for this being to be permanent in your life, when in reality they are impermanent. Or if you could think back to college or university, or maybe when you got dropped off at school as a little kid, that when you went to school, that maybe you were upset or angry or frustrated, you were sad and started crying because the mind thought mom and dad were permanent. And now here you go off into the world by yourself. Right? And your parents might have been crying when they dropped you off at school too, because their mind was holding on to a certain degree, right? This is the craving for permanence. Oftentimes people associate this with love, but it's not love that's causing that. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, right? If you love your child, of course you would send them to college. Of course you would send them to school. Of course you're happy when they go get married, right? But that's not what's causing the painful feelings. It's the mind craving permanence. Here's another example. Let's just say you got a brand new car, and you were so happy and excited with this brand new car because you've been saving up for a really long time to get this car. And now you drive it off the dealership, and everyone's like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's got that nice new car. Wow. You're like, yeah, I got my new car. And now you drive it and you park it at a store, and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. You might be devastated. You might be so frustrated and angry, right? It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence, wanting this car to be permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. That's what we choose to do, right? But the fact is that this car is going to get a scratch. It's only a matter of time. And the paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. That is impermanence. But the mind craves permanence. So if your mind craves permanence, when you see that scratch, you'll get really angry and frustrated. Right? There's actually people in jail right now for the rest of their life because someone scratched their car and they didn't understand this, and they might have killed that person. Right? They might have so angry they killed somebody for scratching their car. Right? This is what happens when you don't understand the second noble truth, that the mind will think that the problem is external. The mind will firmly believe that it's something external that's causing these discontent feelings. And now the mind becomes unskillful. It will tend to push people away or push a situation away. This is called aversion, where the mind firmly believes this person is causing you to be angry and you push them away. You might have pushed away friends or family out of your life, right? Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Because the mind thinks if I can just get those cravings fulfilled, then everything will be perfect. Right? But this doesn't work, because then people experience that hostility and bitterness from you, and they might choose to leave out of your life. Or they're going to choose to be bitter and harsh and hostile back to you. Or the third thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, is you might try to put your expectations on people and try to control them and pressure them to do things your way. In fact, people might be doing this to you. or they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and they're putting expectations on you and trying to control you. This is because the mind doesn't understand what's truly causing these painful feelings, that it's your own cravings, desires, attachments, and the mind's longing, yearning for things to be permanent. Right? So this is the cause of your discontentedness, is that it's your own mind that's causing this. It's the craving, the desire, the longing, the yearning. Now, I know you've been in arguments with people where you've been adamantly trying to convince them that what they are doing is causing you to be angry and frustrated. And they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to keep getting angry and frustrated. But now you need to be able to see this wisdom that the Buddha is sharing with you, this better way of life, to be able to awaken to the wisdom to understand what's truly causing these feelings. So remember, don't believe what I'm sharing here. Let's look at it through reflection, right? Because this was the intellectual learning. Now let's move into reflection. Think about a recent time where you were angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. Might have been this morning, might have been yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that you were longing, yearning for? What was it that you were craving, that you were wanting and expecting? And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But since you didn't get it, you were angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. You should be able to see it for yourself. And if you can, let me know, because I will help you to be able to understand this. I've had plenty of students that needed help over the years, right? To be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. It's the mind craving permanence. There was one particular student I'll share with you. They contacted me one time and they said, David, I need your help. I know you teach that it's my own mind that's causing these feelings, but I went to work this morning and my house looked absolutely beautiful. And when I came home 8 to 10 hours later, my wife had this craft project all over the house. It was all messy. And I walked in and I got frustrated. How did I cause my mind to be frustrated? She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? Nope, it was your own mind. The mind was craving permanence, that the house looked a certain way when they went to work, and they were expecting it to look exactly the same way when they came home. All that's happened here is change. That's it. The only thing that happened was change. When it goes from sun to rain, the only thing that's happened is change. When your bank account balance goes from here to here, only thing that's happened is change. That's all that's happened. But the unenlightened mind doesn't like that. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say this is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. Think about all the times in your life where you were experiencing the most difficulties and struggles. There was some change that was going on. You were changing living locations. You were changing jobs. You were changing relationships. Something was changing, and your mind didn't like it because it didn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, and it hadn't been trained. It was holding on and craving permanence. So you should be able to see this for yourself. And if you can't, let me know when we get to the questions, and I'll be able to help you to be able to understand. Because there's a better way of life here, that you don't have to go around with this craving and desire, this craving for permanence, always wanting things my way. That's what the third noble truth is explaining to you, that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you can eliminate the cause, which the cause is craving, desire, attachment, if you eliminate that cause, you'll eliminate the effect. Right? If you would like to eliminate the effect of something, just eliminate the cause, right? So if you eliminate that longing, yearning, and chasing, wanting things to be a certain way, you can eliminate your discontentedness. And sometimes when I talk about this, people say, well, won't my mind come all the way over here where I'm dull and lethargic and unmotivated and lacking ambition? Well, if you don't understand how to train your mind, surely that can happen. But that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest through wise decision making. The unenlightened mind can see typically very clearly this longing, yearning, and chasing. And they can also see this dull, lethargic, lazy condition as well. But this middle way that the Buddha taught, where you gradually work towards things as a goal, objective, or interest with enthusiasm and ambition, the mind has a hard time seeing that because it's never been trained to actually do that. but that's what the Buddha is teaching you. And you need to be able to essentially eliminate this longing, yearning, and chasing after things. That's what is going to allow you to experience the peace and the joy by eliminating the craving, the desire, the attachment. And remember, you can independently verify this too. Think back to the boyfriend or girlfriend that you were with. When you guys first broke up, you were angry or frustrated or lonely or bored or some other feeling. You were missing this person. Well, at some point, your mind let go. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, let go. Because when you let go, that's where your peace came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And your mind was peaceful and joyful. Or you're like, you know what? If she wants to live in another part of the world, so what? It's okay. Up to her. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. So you can verify that that's true. This is the third noble truth. And then the fourth noble truth is explaining the complete solution, that the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete, perfect solution that's going to guide you and teach you how to eliminate your discontent feelings, because it's going to teach you how to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. That's what the Eightfold Path is teaching you how to do, how to restrain the mind and pull it back so you're no longer longing, yearning. So these four noble truths help you to establish right view. What right view is having the right view that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. What wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. And as long as you keep blaming other people, you'll never actually solve it, because they're not the real problem. Because if they were the real problem, when you push them out of your life, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward, because they were the problem. You pushed them out of your life, and now everything's solved, right? But you can see that that's not true. You still get annoyed. You still get frustrated. You still get agitated, and your mind is craving this permanence. And you'll never get everybody in the world to do things your way, because the world is impermanent. Right? So everything that the Buddha taught is based on this foundation of right view, is understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And then you can build everything else on top of that. So the way that you practice right view is that now and forever, whenever your mind's discontent, instead of looking for someone else to blame or something external to blame, is look inward and try to figure out, what are you longing, yearning for? What are you craving to be permanent? And if you can look inward and be introspective, this is where you can overcome that craving. You can let it go. And that's where your mind becomes peaceful and joyful. But as long as you look externally and try to blame other people, you'll never be able to get to the peace and joy. So the way you practice right view is you look inward and try to figure out, what is your mind longing, yearning for? No longer blaming other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. So I'm going to back up here and see if you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths. Anything you guys would like to ask about this? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. For those of you guys online, you can put your questions in the Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom.
Okay, I have I need help with a situation that I had with an immigration officer who charged me a fee. And as I was taking money out to pay for the fee, which was 7,000 kip, and then I was taking out money and he saw 10,000 and he snatched it out. Okay. And then he held my passport and he held the 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing I can do but close my mouth, get my passport back. And then I left, but then I had the need to tell everybody about it. And I decided that I wasn't going to do that, but that I wanted to find where it would make a difference, that where I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me days to kind of recover my discontentedness
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to figure out, what was I craving? What was the attachment?
Yeah, it sounds like you were craving for this person to behave in a certain way. right? Because remember, this Four Noble Truths isn't explaining what's wise or unwise, because
Right.
obviously it's unwise to snatch somebody's money,
Right.
right? That's stealing. That's unwise,
Basically.
right? But what your mind was doing there was it was craving for this person to behave a certain way. You might have been craving for your money, holding on to your money, perhaps, right? So this is what the mind will do, is it'll hold on. And now when the mind becomes frustrated or agitated or annoyed or angry, you don't make wise decisions, where there could have been some wise decisions there to be able to address that in a certain situation. But when the mind's angry and frustrated, it can't see those wise decisions to be able to bring this situation to a conclusion.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my craving was for this person to behave in a certain way and for me to not lose money that was not owed.
That's what it sounds like to me. But a teacher can't tell you 100% of what your cravings, desires, attachments are. That's what these other factors are for, is for you to be able to look inward to your mind, to be able to see it for yourself. But just from what you told me so far, I can see those two right there. And there could be others as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to wrap in, Joe, what you were asking about the eyes, right? There's something in your mind as one of the pollutions, the 10 fetters. It's called sensual desire, where the mind is longing, yearning through your sense bases, wanting permanently agreeable contact. And when you get that agreeable contact, that's where you get the pleasant feelings. But when you get disagreeable contact, you get the painful feelings. This is how your mind is experiencing anything in the world. It's through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. These are called the 6 sense bases, and the mind's craving permanently agreeable contact. So for example, if you hear a sound, like if you're at a stoplight and you hear some music from somebody that listens to the same music as you, and you're like, whoa, that's my jam. All right, let's go. And that's agreeable contact through your ears. You'll get really excited and happy about that because you have a craving in your mind. And now you get this contact through the ear that is agreeable to you. And now your craving produces that central desire, produces the pleasant feeling. But now you go up to the next traffic light and someone else has a different type of music that you don't particularly listen to, and you despise this music. And now you hear that through your ear and you find that to be disagreeable contact because of your central desire. And now you get frustrated or angry or irritated. It's not the music or the person who's playing the music that's causing that. It's the mind's central desire, that it's craving permanently agreeable contact, when in reality you live in an impermanent world. So it's not just the eyes that you can experience contact through. It's the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. And this is happening with all the 6 sense bases. This is how an individual experiences discontentedness. The cause is craving, desire, attachment. But in order for your craving, desire, attachment to be triggered, you have to have some kind of contact through your 6 sense bases. So if somebody's walking down the street and you see a little child, with your eyes, you see a little child holding their parent's hand, walking down the street, you might be like, wow, that's so beautiful. Look at that. The little child's walking with their parents. Oh, that's so lovely. They're just learning how to walk. That's so wonderful, right? But now you have that agreeable contact and you get so excited about that. And then you walk up to the next block and you turn the corner and you see a parent slap their child across the face. And now you see this, and this is disagreeable to the mind. And now you get angry and frustrated. This is actually being caused by your own mind because the mind's craving permanently agreeable contact. Now, again, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because it's unwise to hit anybody, especially a child, right? It's really unwise to cause any kind of harm like that. But what's causing the mind to be discontent in that situation is its sensual desire, its craving, its desire. So when we talk about it generally like this with the Four Noble Truths, we call it craving, desire, attachment, wants and expectations, holding, grasping, clinging. But when we talk about it as a pollution or as a fetter, we talk about it as sensual desire, because the mind is longing, yearning through these 6 sense bases, wanting permanently agreeable contact when that's impossible. You can't get permanently agreeable contact. So the mind needs to be trained to understand impermanence. And this is what you're learning to ultimately do. But it's all 6 of these sense bases that you're experiencing contact through. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. So now it seems like you guys are understanding right view to a certain degree. You're going to need to practice right view, where now and forever you're looking inward to be able to discover what is your cravings, desires, attachments, not blaming anyone else, because it's not anyone else that's causing these feelings. And if you don't see that yet, you need to let me know so I can help you, right? Because you need to be able to have this breakthrough. Because now, once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, everything else is built upon that. Because if it was other people that was causing these feelings, why are you here? You're perfect. Go home. It's everyone else that needs to be here, right? But that's not the case, right? Did you have a question? I saw you raise your hand. Could you get a mic? Yeah. So right view is focusing inwardly, right? And making sure that you look inward for what are your mind longing, yearning for.
So I guess my question is, because you said it's always us and our mind,
Mm-hmm.
but what if you come across a relationship, a friendship, an acquaintance, when somebody's very disrespectful to you, like the way they talk, like what cursing or just telling you, shut up, like, is that still your own mind, or is it okay to be a little, like, I guess, agitated by that? Or what would be your opinion?
Yeah. So it's still your own mind that's causing that, because you're craving everybody to talk to you in a certain way. The mind's craving everyone to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, where you don't live in a permanent world. You live in an impermanent world. So we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, right? Because that person being disrespectful, I would teach them that that's unwise to do. But what's causing your mind to be agitated or frustrated is the craving for permanence, wanting everybody to talk to you in a certain way. And you're never going to get to that, right? Because you're not even polite, kind, friendly, respectful in every situation. So not everyone's going to be that way with you, right? So even when you're enlightened, you're going to still have an occasional person that's disrespectful or unkind or unfriendly. But your mind will be completely peaceful and joyful at that point, that you will understand that this is impermanence and you didn't cause that disrespect. You didn't cause that person to function that way. It's their own mind that's doing that. So it's not about a matter of whether it's okay to be agitated or not. That's not what the Buddha is giving you. He's not giving you rules and telling you what's okay and what's not okay. He's explaining to you, why is your mind experiencing this? And now when you understand why your mind's experiencing it, you can implement the training to be able to change it, so that now you can get to a point, if someone's polite, kind, friendly, respectful, okay, that's nice. But when someone's disrespectful, it doesn't affect your mind. You're not upset or angry, but you probably would choose to walk away. Where in the unenlightened state, you'll sit there and argue with them. How dare you be respectful to me? You don't treat me that way. I deserve better than that. And da, 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 da. Now you're trying to convince this person to do things your way. This is the mind being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on the person and trying to control them to do things your way. Where in reality, the best thing to probably do is just walk away, right? Person would like to act that way, just walk away. Maintain your peace, maintain your joy, right? So it's still your own mind that's causing those feelings, but you need to be able to see that it's that craving for permanence, wanting everybody to treat you a certain way. And you're never going to get to that situation. Even when you're enlightened, there'll be an occasional person that would be disrespectful, but your mind will be able to be peaceful and joyful in that situation. And you'll just make certain decisions to probably walk away from the situation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we're going to build on top of this. We're going to learn right intention. Right intention is the second factor. These won't take me this long to teach for each factor, because the first one, it takes a little bit of time because you're just learning it. But this one is actually really straightforward. So here the Buddha teaches, in what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. Right? So some people translate this as right thinking or right thought, because you're going to need to have the thinking or the thought or the intention of renunciation, which is to be willing to let go of your false ideas, your false opinions, and your false beliefs. right? If you're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings, you have certain false beliefs, certain false opinions and views in your mind right now. You don't have complete wisdom to truly understand the way the world truly works, or otherwise you wouldn't be experiencing those feelings. So the renunciation is being willing to let go of your false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, as well as your unwholesomeness. Because there's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that you have right now, and you need to be willing to let that go. Essentially, what you're doing with the intention of renunciation is having an open mind, to be willing to learn and understand that you don't understand everything about this world, right? One of the first false beliefs that you need to be willing to let go of is that other people are causing you to be angry. Other people are causing you to be frustrated. You need to be willing to let that go. But the way the teachings of the Buddha work is you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing. You're bringing in wisdom. And when you see that wisdom conflicts with something that you've been believing your entire life, you need to be willing to let go of that belief. And now you have wisdom, right? So we were believing that it was other people that was causing us to be angry for so long. But now if you've independently verified the Four Noble Truths, then you can see the truth. And now you have this wisdom, and you need to be willing to let go of these false beliefs. Because as long as you hold on to these false beliefs, you'll never cultivate wisdom to be able to get to enlightenment. So that's why this is the very next part of the path to enlightenment, is having the intention of renunciation, willingness to let go and give up your false beliefs, opinions, and views in your unwholesomeness. The teachings of the Buddha aren't opinions. They're not views. They're truth, they're wisdom, but you need to be able to independently verify that to see it for yourself. That's what the work that you're doing on the path to enlightenment. And the intention of renunciation is going to help you to be able to do that. Then there's the intention of non-ill will. Whenever you're learning English or you're reading in English or see something in English, if it's a double negative, it's actually a positive. So non-ill will is the same thing as goodwill. Right? So this is the intention of goodwill, active goodwill towards all beings. The opposite of this would be anger, hostility, bitterness, and harshness, right? So as long as you're putting that out, that's what's going to come back to you. So you need to cultivate the thinking or the thought or the intention of goodwill towards all beings, right? Then there's the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. As long as you're putting out harm, this harm is going to come back to you. So you need to get to the point where you have the thinking or the thought or the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm. You can't cause somebody else to be discontent, just like they can't cause you to be discontent. I'm sure you've been in situations where people are blaming you for causing them to be angry. You didn't cause them to be angry. You can't cause someone to be discontent, but you can cause them harm. Causing someone harm is to cause harm to their physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation. If you cause harm to someone's physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation, the way that the natural laws work is that person's going to want to cause you harm. Right? So the Buddha is teaching you to not cause harm to others. That's what you're going to learn in the next section. But here in this particular step, he's teaching you to cultivate the thinking or the thought or the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. Because any harm that you put out is just going to come back to you. This is the natural law. So just a little bit of a summary. The Four Noble Truths is right view. Understanding the problem is discontentedness. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment. The elimination of it is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And the path forward, the complete solution, is the Eightfold Path. Essentially, what the Buddha is teaching you is to accept responsibility for your own feelings, your own emotions, your own intentions, your speech, and your actions. That you understand that what you're doing in life is coming from your decisions, not other people. Right? Then right intention is to practice the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false ideas, your false beliefs and opinions, and your unwholesomeness. Then the intention of non-ill will, having goodwill towards all beings, where you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, which is loving kindness. And then you have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you put out harm, this harm is going to come back to you. So this is the first section of the Eightfold Path. It's called the wisdom section. Do you guys have any questions on this? Yep.
Mr. David, why do you think so many people nowadays are so sensitive to what they hear?
Craving, desire, attachment.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always, whenever your mind is experiencing discontentedness, it comes back to craving, desire, attachment. And then what you guys are going to hear this afternoon is the thing that's allowing craving, desire, attachment to exist is something called ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, or the lack of wisdom. And because the mind doesn't even know what it doesn't even know. So the mind will firmly believe that the problem is external, and now the mind just continues to stay stuck in this continuous loop of having problems over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about it more this afternoon.
Okay, one other question. Do you have an opinion on why a lot of people find it comfort in a victimhood mentality?
In my opinion, having the idea of I am a victim, if someone, a victim mentality, not like you truly had like maybe sexual abuse or something like this, because obviously you've had something harmful that has happened, right? But let's just say somebody stays in a victim mentality of just thinking that because people are impolite, unkind, unfriendly, disrespectful, I'm now a victim of this. What this does is it allows the mind to stay in the complacent state, right? Where I don't have to change. Everybody else is the problem, and I'm just a victim of my surroundings, instead of cultivating wisdom, making different decisions and experiencing different results, right? So obviously there's people that truly are experiencing harms that are coming to them, like physical abuse, sexual abuse, and things like this. But you can get out of those situations, and you can, get to a safe place. Obviously, it's going to be hard in some situations, financially or relationship wise. It's very challenging oftentimes to make these big shifts in your life. But as long as you stay stuck in the victim mentality, you'll stay stuck in that situation, continuing to experience the same things over and over and over again. But when you do what the Buddha is teaching you, which is to take responsibility for whatever it is that you're experiencing in life, this is actually very empowering, because now you understand, if you don't particularly care for this particular thing that's happening, I'm just going to cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and now I'll experience different results. But if we stay stuck in the victim mentality, then we don't ever cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. So it's actually allowing the mind to stay stuck and complacent in this particular harmful situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a break for you guys. I usually take a break before now, but because of everything we had to cover this morning, it went a little bit longer. So it's 10:24. Actually, let me ask you guys a question. It's 11:24. Yeah, I'm sorry. Would you guys like to take an early lunch? Anybody interested in an early lunch? Because we can do it that way too. We can just mix in the break and the lunch, and it'll actually help us. You guys interested in an early lunch? Always ready for food? Okay. Why don't we do that? Why don't we take an early lunch? And when we come back from lunch, I'm going to pick up the rest of this, because what you have here, what you've learned so far, is we've learned the wisdom section. This is the foundation, right? Giving you the intellectual understanding of why it's now important to implement change. That's what the Buddha is setting you up for at the beginning. What I'm going to teach you next is what's called moral conduct. This is what's going to help you to see certain decisions that you're making in terms of your moral conduct is producing harm, and how to clean that up so you will experience improved results. Because as long as you're putting out harm is going to keep coming back to you. you. So the Buddha's not giving you rules and commandments with the moral conduct. He's actually teaching you the natural law of cause and effect, of what causes harm, and therefore you're going to experience harm, right? So he's going to teach you how to clean all that up through wise decision making so that you can improve what you experience on a day-to-day basis when you're interacting with people. Then we're going to ultimately get to the mental discipline, which is going to actually help you implement the moral conduct, because you wouldn't be able to implement the moral conduct if you didn't have the ability to train your mind and get to the point where you are able to have discipline or control of your mind. So that's what I'm going to teach you after lunch. So it's now 11, let's just call it 11:30. Could we do an hour and 15-minute lunch? So that'll bring us back at 12:45. You guys okay with that? Is anybody craving an hour and a half? Is anyone longing, yearning? And if you don't get your hour and a half, you're going to be angry? Nobody? See, you just verified the Four Noble Truths. You just verified it, right? Because if you had a craving for an hour and a half, and I said we're only going to take an hour and 15 minutes, you'd be angry, you'd be upset. But nobody's craving that permanence, okay? You just independently verified it. Okay, so 12:45, I'm going to pick it up with the moral conduct section. So enjoy your lunch, and I'll see you guys after lunch, okay? Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.